The meeting will commence very soon. Please, if you could take your seats. Good morning and welcome, everyone. Let us start with karakia. Manawa mai te mauri nuku, manawa mai te mauri rangi. He manawa nui, he manawa tahi, he manawa ora e. Ka whakamaua kia tīna. Tīna. Hui e, tai ki e. Welcome to everyone, committee members, staff of the Environment Group and others. Welcome to members of the Farming Reference Group who have come over to join us at this meeting, and welcome to any members of the public in the room or viewing online. It's a day of high emotion for us here as part of our farewelling of our beloved colleague Adrian Staples, and also as her fellow councillors grappling with how to fill her gumboots, which is no small feat to represent the Wairarapa and try and to demonstrate the wisdom that she brought to this table. This morning, for those that weren't here, councillors and staff farewelled Adrian from this space through a whakawātia, and then our council meeting that we just held was solely dedicated as a tribute to Adrian, who she was, the wisdom she brought, the mentorship she provided for councillors and staff, and for all her achievements. Suffice to say, Adrian has made an immense contribution to the environmental and climate work of Greater Wellington Regional Council over a very long time. And the loss is not just recognised by us, but it's also deeply felt by the Wairarapa community and the rural and farming communities that she so ably represented around this table. So my personal comment is that I have faith in all of us as her colleagues, that we will pull on her wise hat, her sensible clothes, her gumboots, and we will step up to represent Wairarapa rural and farming communities that we took for granted in a way, that we took her representation of for granted. We now need to be much more proactive and be Adrian in those spaces. Now, I'd like to pass to Leanne as our General Manager of the Environment Group, because many Greater Wellington staff have worked very closely with Adrian over a long time. And so Leanne would like to speak on behalf of the Environment Group of the Council. Leanne.
On behalf of our kamahi, I wanted to acknowledge the passing of Councillor Staples, Adrian. We're deeply saddened by her loss. She was someone who brought both warmth and energy, and also a great deal of fun and laughter in how she worked with people. At the same time, she cared deeply about outcomes, particularly for the Wairarapa and her community, and that always came through. She often spoke to us about nose in, fingers out, and she really embodied that as a councillor. She took the time to understand the detail, asked thoughtful questions, and trusted staff to do their jobs. And the balance made a real difference for how we all work together, and we will all miss her terribly. She'll be remembered not just for what she contributed, but for the way she did it. And our thoughts are with her family, her colleagues, and the Wairarapa community. And we would like to sing a waiata, Poriane, if you'll all stand, please.
Thank you. We have one other farewell this morning before we enter the formal items of the meeting, and that is to Leanne, our General Manager of the Environment Group, who is leaving to take up a supremely important position as Chief Executive of the Environmental Protection Agency. Always get them mixed up. I think Leanne started here about 3 years ago. 4.5, and then previously worked here in other roles back in the day. And it has been that period of time, that 4.5 years, has been seen a lot of change. Greater Wellington works as an organisation in the environment space, so she has guided that change through to a much more integrated, deeper and connected way of working across all the different responsibilities, a very diverse list of responsibilities that this regional council has through the environment. I'd just like to hand to our Chief Executive, Nigel Corrie, to say a quick word. Nigel.
Thank you, Chair. Leanne, on behalf of me, ELT, and all your colleagues across the council, I want to sincerely thank you for coming back to the Regional Council. Some of you may not know Leanne worked there before, left, went to DOC and came back to the Regional Council. And that was one of the first things I did when I became Chief Executive, picking up the change process that had started, which combined the existing environment group and catchment groups into one new environment group, Rupu Taiao. And when I was out of the market, I had one or two people that I really thought would be brilliant to come back into this organisation. Leanne was top of that list. Fortunately, she applied, interviewed fantastically well, and became the first group manager of Rupu Taiao. What you've achieved in 4.5 years, and I sent the contract to you on the 26th of October, which my birthday was the 25th of October. So I thought that was actually really good timing. That was an excellent outcome for my birthday. But you've done an incredible job. This is the biggest change this organisation's ever been through in terms of integrating our core environmental functions from the two groups that they were into one integrated system. It involved a huge number of people, a huge complexity of change, and a huge complexity of design. And then it turned into a huge complexity of implementation. You shepherded it and guided that, your staff, the people, and yourself through an amazing amount of complexity to produce what we have now. And I can only thank you most profoundly for the way in which you did it, the contribution you brought to ELT, and the support you gave me and the processes we worked through to deliver what you've achieved. You've got to leave incredibly proud. I am personally incredibly proud of you, of what you've achieved, and I'm so stoked that you're going to be a chief executive at a major agency in the Crown, and you will be absolutely fantastic. So thank you, Leanne, and on behalf of all staff of Greater Wellington, go well. You will always be part of our whānau, and welcome back anytime.
Thank you, Nigel, and thank you, Leanne. Moving to the formalities of the agenda, Democratic Services will be quite keen to get on to at least number 1. So are there any apologies? There are none. Item number 2, are there any conflict of interest to declare from members? There are none. Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, public participation. I understand there is no public participation for this meeting. However, there are members of the Farming Reference Group present, and when we get to that item on the agenda, we will introduce or they will introduce themselves as part of that item. We have 4 items, councillors, on the agenda today. We will do them in the order that they are on the agenda that is listed. Item 7, managing threats from marine pests, is a decision paper, so we have a choice to make on that one. The others are information papers where we can question and understand the work of Rupu Taiao on our behalf. Item 4, actually, I missed one. The confirmation of the public minutes from the Environment and Climate Committee meeting on Thursday the 26th of March. Feels like a long time ago now, but probably only about 6 weeks. Members, were there any issues or questions with those minutes? I see none, so can I have moved by Councillor Saw, seconded by Councillor James, that we accept those minutes from the previous meeting. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against? Thank you. Carried. Moving on to our first substantive item, which is around the riveting topic of gravel extraction, which actually, judging on feedback from councillors, was a very riveting paper. So who'd have thought? Can I invite to the table Josh Prepperall and Hamish Finnick to speak to paper on gravel extraction across the region? And actually, just to say, we have some time pressure today, but we're going to deal with these 4 items as they need to be dealt with. But we will try and wrap this meeting up by lunch at 12:30. So if councillors could make their questions succinct, and officers get straight to the point. If it's a spade, call it a spade, not a long-handled digging implement. Over to you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Kia ora, councillors. Josh Pepperell, I'm the team leader of the consents management team within the delivery function.
And I'm Hamish Finnick, I'm team leader for the flood operations team across the whole region.
Like you would have seen, the paper's from the perspective of delivery as the consent holder and the operational arm of council, issuing the licences and undertaking the gravel extraction. Like Chair said, it's an information paper, essentially providing a high-level summary of the purpose of gravel extraction in the region, how it's one of several river management tools that we use. It also summarises our approach to gravel extraction and the how and why the decisions are made in the various parts. It also summarises the extent of gravel extraction across the region based on the various consents we hold as Greater Wellington Delivery. There's no specific decisions to be made. We're happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll start a speaking order. I've got Councillor Free to start with. So let's go straight into that.
Yeah, thank you. I found the paper really interesting, but it did raise for me practically. So I have a place at Otaki. I see Winston Aggregates there down by the river. Obviously, they're doing something with gravel. How does that tie in with the consent? Do we authorise them on our behalf to extract gravel from that river? But how does it work?
Yes, that's correct. So Greater Wellington hold the resource consent to extract gravel, and with that resource consent we issue a gravel licence to contractors to extract gravel. The licence contains the allocated volume for that particular extraction and all the conditions that they need to comply with.
And is that the model for other catchments as well? I obviously haven't seen the others, but
Yes.
okay. And how do we monitor that to make sure that they're adhering to their quantity?
Yes, so the contractors, part of that licence, they submit a gravel return, which they may receive a licence for 5,000 cubic metres. Once they've measured it, or we've measured it, it might be 4,823. So there's a few different methods. More recently, we've been using a drone to take aerial photos of stockpiles, and we process that, and that'll give us some volume quite accurately. It doesn't always work, depending on the methodology, so sometimes we rely on information from how many truckloads have been taken out.
I presume it matters if they don't take enough, and it also matters if they take too much. So we're monitoring both.
Yeah, probably more if they take too much.
Okay, if they take too much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. A supplementary from me on Councillor Free's question. When we licence others to extract gravel under our resource consents, are we paying them to do that, or are they paying us for the privilege of that gravel?
Both. It's dependent on different factors. So where it is economic for a contractor to remove gravel and take it back to their processing yard, or they can process it on site and on-sell it. So they will make revenue off that. We charge a royalty per cubic metre. There are, however, other areas where the material is either not the right quality for processing it, or the mileage to cart the material isn't economic. So in situations like that, we'll either waive the royalty to encourage extraction, or we will actually pay for it to be removed.
Thank you. Councillor Connolly next.
Yes, thank you very much for this paper. I was one of the people that caused my colleagues great amusement by saying that I really, really enjoyed reading this paper, and it was very informative. So I meet a lot of people that think gravel extraction is the solution to all our flood management problems, and the fact that if we just did more of it, we wouldn't have to have you guys doing anything else, pretty much. But at paragraph 15, you say over extraction or insufficient gravel supply can result in increased bed scour and bank erosion, and can also cause undermining of structures within the river corridor. Now, I guess I didn't feel like I was fully aware of the risks of over gravel extraction, and I'm just wondering if you can explain to me how that happens without going into too much fluid dynamics, particularly how the bed contour, whether it's the bed contour or just the lack of gravel that causes those disbenefits.
Sure. I guess the way I like to describe it is if you dig a hole in gravel with a spade, or, the deeper you go, the wider it gets at the top, you know, as the sides start to collapse in, and it's similar with a river. So the more gravel that's taken out of the bed level makes your riverbanks higher. They want to collapse in, especially when you have flow that is eroding away at the toe of those high banks. And so there is a happy medium where we can have channel capacity or a bed level where we can stabilise the banks through vegetation, but if the banks get too high, we can't stabilise them. And so the river wants to migrate sideways and can cause further erosion.
That is extremely useful. In terms of the insufficient gravel supply, obviously that's just a natural feature of how the river moves gravel down, and we can't control that. We can't put more gravel into the system, or we don't, I assume. So is that when we would do other things like rock revetments and other things to stabilise the side of the bank if there's insufficient gravel supply?
Yes, correct. Yeah, that's where we move to other methods, but we certainly don't extract gravel in those areas that are naturally degrading. We may do something called gravel redistribution, where we will move gravel around to protect banks, but not take it out.
Thank you. Councillor Saw next, and then Free and Roads.
Like my fellow councillor Connolly, I really enjoyed this paper. So thank you so much for for aggregating all this information together. I couldn't resist saying worse puns. I guess what it shows is there's so much analysis and information that goes in before the public see any visible work in our waterways. And there's such a detail, there's so much detail and a massive story in here, and yet sometimes the public, as Councillor Connolly has mentioned, some of the public think that we should be doing more of it, and other parts of our community are horrified to see gravel extraction take place. So I guess my question is, how do we socialise and tell the story beyond, say, our Wakanai River Walk, which is coming up soon? How do we socialise this with the community, that they understand that there's so much analysis and work behind it? Because there's a really rich story here to tell people.
Yeah, and that's a good question. I guess from an operational level, if we are undertaking major work that is, in the face of the community, we put up signage at that particular site explaining what we're doing and why. But I guess that doesn't front foot those activities. I think maybe 18 months, 24 months ago, we did do some social media campaigns around all activities we undertake on the river and why. So that was one thing, but we could possibly follow up with another
And then one more question. Yeah, so anyway, I guess the ask from me is how do we tell that story in all our work and all the other touch points that have to do with our waterways where this work occurs? And then the second one is you were talking about the quality, the varying quality of the gravel that's extracted. Can you tell us a little bit of what happens to the stuff that can be reused and what happens to the lesser quality rock?
Mm-hmm.
Just, I'm just generally
Just
curious
generally,
of
so-
what it can be used for.
And it does have an effect on the market and our ability to extract. So typically contractors will be after larger stone. They can then process it. They crush it into road chip or engineering materials for compacting roads and building foundations for buildings and those sorts of things. So they produce different grades. If they've got bigger rock or bigger stone, it makes it easier for them to do that. The biggest stone is generally located in the upper reaches of the river, which are the areas that are currently degrading naturally, so we're not touching those areas. As you make your way down the river, the stones get smaller, and it gets to a point where they're too small to really crush to get that chip or engineering fill. Contractors have become more efficient over the last few years as the larger stuff hasn't been as available, and they will blend smaller stuff with bigger stuff. So extract small stuff and blend it into their bigger stuff as well. Specifications around concrete as well requires different sites. So there's sand in concrete, smaller stone, and crushed stuff as well. So they're blending that as well. Stuff that really is no use is when it gets into silty, almost like mud type things, or small round pebbles, and that's where we're sort of trying to dispose of it. But the cost of that quickly ramps up.
So does that just go to land? That material would just go to landfill, or is it used as fill?
We look for different opportunities. Yeah. Sometimes it will just go into a fill site.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't need that high specification material. Sometimes we'll go to landfill. There are some areas, not very often, where there can be contamination as well, and obviously that needs to go to landfill special.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor, let's go Councillor Rhodes next, and then Councillor Free.
You've been smoothing out the flanks of the Hutt River with a big bulldozer for quite a long time over the past couple of years. And I was wondering, obviously it's there to improve the flow, so I wonder whether, can you measure the flow improvements that you get out of that, or is that a sort of there for another reason? There's a lot of money being spent on it, so you kind of want to justify it somehow. But.
Yes, yeah. So you would have seen the bulldozer probably up around the Moonshine area, Totra Park, and down in those upper reaches of the Hutt River. Generally that is more around vegetation control, which also has an issue around capacity. So if you've got lots of plants growing in the channel, that takes up room where river water could flow. But generally in that area it isn't around gravel extraction.
Thank you. Councillor Free.
Thank you. Just one last question from me. Do we have any policy or controls on the private extraction of gravel, like people who just fancy a trailer load or two of gravel?
Yes, that's covered in the NRP.
Yeah, so under the regional plan, there are permitted activity conditions. I think it's 50 cubes, which is a relatively small amount, which you can take without resource consent. Otherwise, you need to seek additional approvals.
50 cubic
meters.
That's
50 trailer loads.
50 trailer loads. So you can actually, anybody can just go and take 50 trailer loads.
Yeah. That is for landowners adjacent to the river.
Landowners adjacent.
Yeah,
okay.
And it needs to be used on that property.
I see.
If you aren't an adjacent landowner, it reduces down to 10, I think.
10 trailer loads.
Yeah,
something.
you take 1 cubic metre.
Oh, okay. Some people actually are a bit more familiar with this one than I am. Okay, thank you. That's interesting.
You can take more than you really need. Yeah.
Okay.
For your garden.
All right. Okay, thank you.
On that question, is it recommended that a member of the public who wish to take gravel contacts the river ranger or the local Greater Wellington office before driving their ute down and just shoveling any old bit into it? How does that work in terms of permission?
I would probably recommend it too, just to prevent committee members getting upset or confused or things like that. So yes, particularly in those urban areas.
Yes. Thank you. Any further questions from committee members? Councillor Elder.
I'm just a little bit curious about the economics of this. Can you share some numbers with us? What does it cost to extract a cubic metre? Are we paying to dispose of it? Are we able to sell it to people that want to buy gravel extraction?
Mm-hmm.
And how much we spend in a year on this management process?
So the Water Act is set up fairly well in terms of gravel extraction and recovering costs. We have contractors who will take gravel, large quantities, and I think we charge $1.65, somewhere around there, per cubic metre as a royalty. That covers our costs in terms of administration and issuing licences. And also then that royalty goes into a gravel royalty fund, and a percentage of that royalty is reallocated back into the river schemes, and the rest sits there for other projects that will benefit that region. That budget is held by Leanne, I think, at the moment. And so that's an example of, I think it's 70% comes back into the scheme, and the rest is held in a fund. Other areas where so Porirua Stream is an example. That's a very poor quality material, and if we can, each time we go to extract it, we'll work with contractors to see if there's somewhere it can be used, but if not, then it needs to be taken to landfill. I think we took 4,000 cubic metres out last year. Some of that was able to be used, but that was, I think, cost around $90,000 to undertake that whole activity in that particular area. So you can see the different scale. It's significant. We'd rather not be paying to take gravel out.
Councillor Johnstone.
Sorry, I just want a little bit of clarification. I understand that actually the private citizens can take up to 2 metres of gravel, and I can't remember what the term period is, and I can't remember whether it's under, because we do take it from Hutt City, but it's very specific about how much you can take without needing a licence or permission or anything else.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So we're not breaking the law, and you're not going to come and arrest us. I'm really pleased because I do need it for my garden this week. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions from members. I've got a couple myself before we move on to the next item. The paper alludes to gravel extraction both from dry areas of the river and wet areas, and I presume that is used at different times for different purposes and has a different set of ecological risk or impact. Could you just differentiate those two? When do we extract from a dry beach versus a wet channel, and what are the risks that we're managing in each of those situations to the habitat and ecology of the river?
So I'll start with the dry extraction. There's two reasons we'll extract there. As the beach builds up in gravel, so you get a lot of accumulation there, it can push a channel or confine a channel up against a riverbank, and can create a risk of erosion in that particular area, but it also decreases the carrying capacity. So taking gravel off dry beaches, it's for both those reasons. But again, it needs to be in an area where the gravel is aggrading. If we're outside of an area, if the river is degrading, that's when we look at other options around gravel redistribution, or we'll move the gravel to the other side, or cut a channel through the beach to create that capacity. When we move into wet gravel extraction, we prefer to avoid it if we can. Obviously, it has a bigger effect on the environment, but there are areas where the river is aggrading and we don't get the beaches developing. So the only way to get gravel out is by digging in the wet. We have in that situation, we develop a site-specific effects monitoring plan and a methodology which will limit the time that we're working in the wet channel. We'll set the channel up so that the water bypasses where we're gravel extracting, and that minimises the sediment release as well. Part of the SSCMP, we are also undertaking site monitoring. We're measuring the water clarity for sediment. We're providing fish passage, and in some instances we're doing fish rescue as well.
Thank you. One final question. The activity of gravel extraction is one example of where Greater Wellington is both the activity operator and also the resource consenter, where the poacher and the gamekeeper. Just describe the checks and balances that are in place to make sure that we as one organisation are fairly and transparently and correctly, effectively regulating ourselves for the sake of members of the public who might be concerned about that situation.
Sure. Did you want to answer that?
Yeah. So I alluded to it a little bit around the code of practice. Obviously, at the moment, the hut and Wainui consents are the code of practice is embedded within the consent conditions. What we did last year was roll out the code of practice region-wide, regardless of whether it was required by the resource consents or not. So I suppose in short, that was to lift up good management practices in the way we undertook these works, regardless of what was required. And I suppose through that process, we have then been able to create a better relationship with environment regulation around our annual planning, annual reporting on all river management activities, not just gravel extraction, and keeping them up to date regularly, like Hamish alluded to. Something like in Otaki, which doesn't require an SSEMP, we are now doing that and getting EREG to review those, even though we're not legally required to under the consent. So there's some of those additional processes we're doing through the code of practice anyway, which is keeping us more aligned with what environment regulation expects of us.
Thank you. And when in our activities we breach our resource consent conditions, does environmental regulation treat you as the bulldozer operators, indirectly, the same way any other consent holder who is in breach of resource consent conditions?
Yes, no, definitely.
Do you concur, Fatamara, Director of Regulation? Yes. So there you go. Everyone can breathe easy. Very good. Thank you, councillors. I actually had a few other minor questions, but I'll pursue them after the meeting. And so if any members have other sort of more intricate or geekish type questions, Councillor Connolly, looking at you, feel free to send them through and we can share some further information. So that was just a for information paper. Thank you very much, officers. We'll move on now to the item 6, rock on, yes, with a gravelly voice. Item 6, the Environment Group Activity Report. Now, often we have this right at the end of the agenda and it ends up with 2 minutes left and we all go, oh, yeah, we're doing lots and off to morning tea. So it's earlier in the agenda. There's more time for you members to explore the activity report. There is a wealth of diversity of information because we have so many different roles and responsibilities in environment area. So are you speaking to this, Leanne? Thank you. So Leanne will introduce.
Thank you, Chair. We are going to take the report as read, but the kaimahia will here to answer any questions that you may have. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Connolly first, and I'll watch for hands.
So I had to Google what Phragmites kaka was. So there's quite a long conversation about us removing it from a site in Otaki. But then you note down later that there are 2 current sites in Kapiti. So it sounds like we've gone to quite a lot of effort to remove it in this Otaki site, but what are we doing regarding the 2 Kapiti sites? Because presumably it will just naturally spread if we don't take some action on the kapiti infestation.
Kia ora, Councillor Connolly. Thanks. In short, I'll get back to you with detail on that. We did a good job removing the first site, and the plan for the other sites you mentioned, I'm not quite sure of the when and the extent of which we're going to deal with that. So I'll follow up later.
I do know at least, I think one site is at Queen Elizabeth Park, and we have been controlling it for a number of years, but it's really hard to control. I think they say this in the report, but spraying it is not super effective. We've had to get in with a digger, and you have to get every single last bit of rhizome out, so it's quite destructive to have to do it. The consequence of that establishing it's not just environmental. I think overseas it's been known to like rip apart stop banks, and so the consequence of getting into our estuaries and our waterways would also have big implications for the cost and practicality of doing things like flood management, stream mouth management. So it is widespread further north, but we really don't want it to establish here, not for both reasons.
I have a supplementary question on your question, Councillor Connolly. This particular invasive weed species, is it listed in our regional pest management plan, which is the subject of the next item on the agenda? And if it's not, is it something that should be considered to be in that, given it is obviously an issue for the Wellington region and Greater Wellington? Microphone, please, Hamish.
Oh, sorry.
Other button.
No, it is not in our current regional pest management plan, and we cannot set up a site-specific management plan for it at this time because it is not listed by MPI as an unwanted organism. But yes, if we did decide to progress with our regional pest management plan, looking at it early, which will come up later, then we could, and we definitely would look at adding that to our regional pest management plan.
Thank you. Councillor Tupou next. Thanks, Hamish.
Mr. Chair, just on the kapiti whip from point 29, does the proposed marking a kai restoration program in the kapiti whaitua have the potential to inform or support the rollout of similar initiatives across other whaitua areas?
Thank you, Councillor Tupou. So WIP means Whaitua Implementation Program, so we're referring to the kapiti whaitua recommendations there. Was that a question to me, Councillor Tupou? Because I have no idea.
Officers.
Officers, thank you very much. Who would like to respond to that? Nicola.
Probably the easiest thing I can say is each of the whaitua implementation programs and their companion reports have been introduced over a period of years. The kapiti one is the most recent that's been introduced, and we've been able to maintain a different momentum and approach in a partnership approach to implementing it. So we have an active partnership group, and as part of that we have a kaimahi working group, and we've made really good progress this calendar year in identifying how do we prioritise together. With the previous works, they've had different journeys, and there has been, as you're probably aware, some sense of a lack of momentum in those spaces. And that's where over the last few years we've tried to improve the transparency of our reporting to show that actually there's quite a lot going on, and it's more been a gap in how we communicate and the ways we've taken forward the implementation together than a lack of action. That said, the implementation, a lot of the recommendations are quite aspirational, they're long-term, they're multi-generational, so there are challenges in their implementation as well. So it is a complicated area to provide a succinct answer on, except to say that the kapiti whaitua approach looks like it's built on the shoulders of the good stuff that's gone before and is possibly going to be, our preferred way forward. So to get to the point, yes, it would be great if we can take it forward, but it's a bit different in different places.
Thank you, Councillor James, and then Councillor Free.
Sorry. Kia ora. Just wanted to dig into the fuel cost increases. Paper notes that there's a number of suppliers who have indicated that they're quite keen to pass these costs on to us. So have we got an idea of the quantum on this side of the financial year of what we're potentially on the hook for?
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, look, fuel costs across the business, obviously, across the country are a problem at the moment. So we probably don't have a full idea of the quantum, but what we do have an understanding of is what suppliers might require or be expecting us, or hoping we will provide some relief. Obviously, it's our fleet and our general core services, it's probably more so our contracting partnerships. So we've got a policy in place that we're looking at those claims if we get them on an individual one at a time basis, and we'll make considerations on an individual one at a time basis.
Okay. And the Para 12 notes that we're also considering whether work can be delayed to help manage these costs is like what work? Any particular work programs or areas that are being looked at?
Any more in detail?
If you can try and answer that, otherwise we can take an action to compile some information to share.
Something I can add to that.
Councillor Saw wishes to answer that question. How do you?
FRAC had I think there is an update that can be available around the organisational response to all of this, and maybe I could ask our chief exec to let us know when we might be able to share that update from that team.
So we'll take an action to follow that up, and it obviously doesn't just affect the environment group.
Yeah.
Affects,
Netlink.
But I reckon just
Thank you. And just for those people listening, Councillor Saw is the chair of our Finance, Risk and Assurance Committee, FRAC, affectionately known as. Did you have another question, Councillor James?
Oh, no, just noting that I was particularly interested in the impacts on the environment area. So, yes, but we're going to take the action away. So.
And very prescient and urgent.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Free and then Councillor Saw.
So just looking at the fast-tracked projects, which is a little previous to the matters we've been discussing, but in the same paper, I'm taking it that the list that we have here, the regional council is involved in the consent application in some way, or can someone clarify whether we are or aren't, and if so, what is it that our involvement consists of?
Okay, Fatima, please.
Kia ora, Councillor. So these are the list of fast track applications that are in our radar. Either they've been lodged in with the EPA or they're in the process of going to be lodged in the region. The role of the regional council is once the EPA assesses the application, then they invite the various council partners to actually comment on the application, particularly in terms of aligning to our regulatory plans and our rules. So our scope is very limited to that. So all we can do is provide advice in terms of the application, what they're proposing, whether it aligns to our regional policy statement, our natural resources plan, and those rules. So that's our role. And then the EPA picks it up and runs its process in terms of decisions.
So have we been called upon to exercise that role in relation to any of these projects on the list?
Absolutely. So we are highly involved in the Southern Seawall renewal for Wellington Airport. So that is an application that's going through Mount Welcome in Pukurua Bay. So that's an application that we are commenting on as well. So the rest of the applications are in the process. So we will start to see them as they come through. But where it says substantive application is in process, that's where we are actually commenting around it.
Okay. There are 3 of those. So the other one is the Waikanae North Development.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saw.
Cool. I have, it's very nice to see this item further up the agenda, so thank you for that. I just have 3 distinct questions. One is around paragraph 6, around the that Ministry for the Environment have confirmed the new NPSFM. Do we have any early indications of what the direction of travel might be in that yet? Just some high level direction, and what is the sort of expectation of when we might see some of that come through here, given everything else we've got on our plates.
Fatima.
We definitely don't have an indication of where the direction of the NPS FM is going. However, hearing from the ministry that they're considering this as part of the new planning system has made us consider what does that mean for our plans and our plan changes, just because of the timing of when we will actually see this instrument is now up in the air, because we had thought we would receive it in 2026. So with the new system, when it will embed, when we think national instruments will come, now that's going to be extended to 2027. So we have a notified plan that was in the middle of a hearings process that the council decided to pause. So we are assessing what that means, and we hope to probably bring a paper to council over the next 6 months.
Well, and I guess noting also that there's, change at central government level as well with the new mega ministry as well. So the functions of Ministry of Environment are about to get absorbed into that. So I'm sure that will play into the development of this and the eventual delivery of it too. And my next question, favourite topic, miss it on finance, risk and audit, is our navigation safety and harbour master related things. Not on this paper, but I just wanted to get some comment of whether there's been any position or reaction to the government's decision to cease any further cease any continuation of the emergency ocean response project and have reallocated those funds to Ohakia commercial flight landing. Hello, Harbour Master.
They're building a new ocean-going tug right next door.
We're just building one in-house.
Thank you, Councillor Saw. So we've got Grant Nolder, our Harbour Master, to respond to
Okay,
that
there are
question.
a few aspects of that. The decision was made earlier in the year, and obviously that was disappointing, and there was communications from the council to the minister seeking feedback on that, which was neutral, might be the best description of the feedback. Councillor Ponta may wish to comment. The issue hasn't changed. The issue is still there. As for the reallocation, that's government to do with their money as they will. But the issue is still there. There were other options. I'm not sure how far up the line they went. A bit of slightly positive news: the tug that was being used, I suspected was going to be leaving the country next month. I've heard that their contract in Taranaki has now been extended. Short term for an incident in Cook Strait, not actually going to make any difference. For some of the larger events and longer term ones, that is a benefit for the country, but it doesn't make any impact on the ferries.
Grant, it might be useful if you could just give a bit of background context, because I obviously didn't set up too well in terms of the issue we're talking about and what that means for your role as well as our friends on the other side of Raukawakawa Strait. And I guess that means that the sort of risk is still on the table for us, yes?
The risk is, I'll try and keep it brief, comment about time. And an interesting twist at this afternoon, the Transport Accident Investigation Commission report into the Kaitaki power loss is being released. So that will come out this afternoon. It is not a new issue. After the Wahine went aground, it was identified that there should be tugs that could assist vessels and that get into difficulty. The Harbour Board acted on that, and within about 5 years they had tugs on the harbour. Over time, Centreport has updated their tugs to more powerful tugs, more modern tugs, which are suited for the purpose which they're required, which is handling ships in the port. The Port Companies Act required port companies to do things in a profitable outcome, which as shareholders is good for us. And so their focus is in handling ships in the harbour, not handling ships out of the harbour. There is a gap. There is no requirement for anybody to try and save vessels in trouble at sea. There is an absolute obligation to save the people on the vessels, but not the vessels. if you're dealing with 800 or 1,500 people on a ship in Cook Strait, there's a reasonably strong argument that the best way to look after the people is to keep them on the ship and not try and get them off because of the weather and other such factors. The Kaiteki breakdown, which a bit over 3 years ago now, highlighted it when there was a near grounding on the south coast. Since then, we've had other incidents where ferries have lost power, but it's been able to be recovered. The government briefly had an interim proposal to have a tug on standby in Wellington, which was fine for the 2 and a bit weeks of the month it was here. And outside of that, again, not hugely positive. That was cancelled for financial reasons. Whether they'll entertain that again now the tug is staying in the country, I don't know. So at the moment it's sitting with central government. They have not rated that highly as a risk. From my point of view, anytime I get a call about a ferry with mechanical difficulties, it makes me nervous because outside of Wellington Harbour, there's virtually nothing we can do about it.
Just
I
one
hope
more
that answers
question.
your question.
Yes, it does. So would it be would it be accurate to say we've basically been sort of saved by luck?
We have been very fortunate in incidents to date, yes.
Thank you, Grant. And I just got one more question, which is, just very excited about the news in Waipahihi Karori stream around the short jaw kōkupu, and just wanted to note the high quality habitat and ecological resilience of that urban catchment. Can anyone tell us what is particularly good about that we might be able to replicate in other urban stream catchments? Like, is it just like impossible? Is it just by sheer luck, or are there some things we might be able to lift and shift in other parts of my constituency?
We have a brave volunteer to answer that question. Welcome to the table, James.
I want to go from scary news to good news.
Yes, that was a
scary about this.
very large short jaw.
Kia ora whānau, ko James Luti tōku ingoa, he kai whakahaere rā ronga me te Aratoroki. I am James, I am the Manager of Data and Monitoring. I don't have the answer to your question, but I'm very happy to get it. My understanding is that this stream has likely had this species for a long time. They're not something that kind of migrate between catchments very easily. It's probably a product of some better than usual freshwater quality and some diversity in the riparian habitats so that they can form a sustainable population. But we're looking forward to doing some more investigations to this area just to see the actual extent of the population and its health. Obviously, this area was significantly affected from the flooding too, so it will be interesting to see whether the population persists post the flood. We've got more fishing activities planned for this time next year, and we'll be looking to prioritise this area given the uniqueness of this population in an urban context.
Thank you. And my final one is, I'll frame it as a question. Is the catchment team of Wairarapa aware that there was some very positive feedback around the engagement with the Whangai Mona community around Greater Wellington's response? So there was some very positive feedback. So the question is, did that news get to the team?
I think you can frame that just as a positive bouquet.
Just wanted to follow standing orders.
Yeah. So unless anyone wants to respond, Nicola,
Just
you want
say
to say something?
thank you.
Oh, very nice. Is it Councillor Johnstone? Yes. Grant, please return. Hoki mai ki te tepu. Councillor Johnstone's just got a call from a passenger on the ferry and has a question for you.
I have written a scenario about the ferry going down and what we would do. So the question I've got, the Maritime Union report, and I think there was a second report as well, strangely enough agreed with one another that was quite a high risk. And I've got a real basic question, which is over the inner harbour tugs. I don't know how else to describe them. Should there be an incident, are they, because it came up in the Centreport meeting when I asked about it, are they legally allowed to go?
Yes. Post Kaiteki, Centreport have looked at their operations, and I believe adjustments to their insurance and survey limits and what have you. And if there is life at risk, pretty much most of the rules go out the window anyway. So preservation of life, you can do what is required and what is safe. The issue with the tugs is with the design and how they work. They tow from the front of the tug, which is then best designed to head into waves in rough weather. If they're towing, they've got the stern, which is lower and more vulnerable to weather going into the waves. In the harbour, that's not a problem because it's relatively benign conditions they're working in. They did bring the Connemara in last year, it was, and they had to tow her in. That was reasonably good conditions for Wellington, and I believe it was possibly getting near the comfort level of those vessels. So it's not about the power of the tugs, it's just about how they can use it.
You may, and then Councillor.
So with Maritime New Zealand, they make a decision on whether the ferries go or don't go. There's very specific provisions, I believe. With that risk, have they changed their provisions at all to try and lower the risk with bad weather?
So the operating parameters are managed by the operators. Maritime New Zealand are the national regulator, but the operators do that. Over time, they have become more risk adverse. Part of the information that we provide with Centreport on wind and wave and forecasting feeds into that, so they're very much aware of weather conditions. They, with bad weather forecasts, they will cancel in advance, let passengers know. They sometimes leave passengers off and just carry it with freight, which means you go from maybe 400 people on board to 90. So they're aware of it. Both ferry companies do a lot of maintenance work, but they are older ships and they're very hard working ships. So they work very hard on what they can prevent. I hope that answers in some regards, but yeah, but the parameters are the operators do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ponta, and then we'll draw this item to close.
Yeah, so Centreport don't like me saying this, but I refer to them as the bath tugs, because they have a very limited role. In relation to the government's most recent decision to take the money that they were putting into a standby tug in Wellington Harbour and put that money into Ohakia Airport, we will be going back to ministers to not challenge that, but just to say that doesn't get them off the hook for the Cook Strait. We still have an issue that we need to prosecute in the Cook Strait, and that's for us all. Trying to find a solution that doesn't put people's lives at risk. So that's me and the Mayor of Marlborough sort of continuing to push on that.
Thank you. So we'll draw this item to the close. I have 4 wee things, but they're more in the sense of suggestions, probably for action lists rather than questions. So just very briefly, first one is around Riverlink. Now, the decisions and oversight of Riverlink project are outside of the scope of this committee under our terms of reference. They're a responsibility of council. But it does mean that there is no reporting to councillors on a regular basis about what's going on at Riverlink. And so I tend to find out more about Greater Wellington's work in Riverlink from Hutt City Council order papers than I do through my own council. I have an action item of whether Riverlink and just an update on the operational activities and next steps is included in the Environment Group report, even though we don't have decision-making or oversight responsibility. So, Jack, were you going to comment on that, whether that's feasible?
Yeah, just at the last council meeting when we brought Riverlink, council helpfully raised it would be very useful to separate items that were public excluded from general updates and bring those to council. And so we are working to action that. Our current plan would be to bring those to council as regular updates on the operational progress and so forth.
Great. So if that transpires, then that would be sufficient. Thank you. Second thought is there's paragraphs 15, I think, around parks planning. And my issue is actually with terminology. So we as governance have approved a parks plan, Toitu Te Whenua, that authorises a master planning process. And that is the language that we have used, but it keeps changing. So in this report, it is no longer referred to as master planning, it is spatial planning. At one point in time, it was called Te Mahere, and in our workshop this afternoon, it is called master planning. It is all the same thing, and I just a plea to officers that we use the single term. If there is an issue with the word master planning, then come to us and seek approval to use a different term. But let's all stay on the same page so we know we're actually talking about exactly the same thing in all those different words. Third point is dung beetles and a catchment model I saw in there. Sounds absolutely fascinating. Can you please bring them to our next environment and climate meeting so we can see this catchment model and pour some water in the top and see where it goes, and then play with some dung beetles? Unless there's objection from around the table. But if children in the Wairarapa get to play with these things, then I think we as councillors should understand them too. And then my last suggestion is there's a wonderful video, if you haven't seen it yet, members, a wonderful video produced by Greater Wellington featuring the work of Fern Hill Farm Station in the Wairarapa and Greater Wellington's support for that. Very well worth a watch. And in this paper, there's a description of Greater Wellington working with Wahanga, I think it is, station. And that sounds like a wonderful story to tell in one of those video forms too. So just 4 little suggestions for a wonderful report with a lot of diversity in it. And if any members have particular questions or things you'd like to find out more about, you can come through the chair or just go directly to staff for more information. Oh, very quickly, because we need to move on, but yes.
It's just whether we can get a report on it, and it's on Plymouton Farms and the recent flood incident. Can we please have a report on what the environmental impact was, whether the consensus they currently stand were adhered to, are there any concerns?
Yes, we can add that to the action list. If you could, following the meeting, perhaps just send a few words by email as to what you're seeking, and then I'll talk to Fatima about what we can report back to councillors on. Is that okay, Fatima, if we just leave it with that, or?
Yeah, we've actually started to action that, so if that's okay, we'll email Councillor Johnson in the meantime first, and then if you feel like it's something that needs to come to the wider council, we can add it to the next agenda.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7 on the agenda, and thank you very much to the Farming Reference Group members for your patience. We're getting to your item very soon, but I hope this is a useful insight into how we roll in this whare, just as we're looking forward to learning about how you roll in your rohi. So the item is a decision paper, managing threats from marine pests. I invite staff forward so Fatima is going to speak to that.
While the team is setting up, I just thought I'll introduce the paper. I understand it's a pretty complex paper because it is a pretty complex decision. So just wanted to give a quick introduction around what we're seeking from you today and what the options are in front of you. So the Regional Pest Management Plan is up for review for this region in 2029. However, what the current regional pest management plan doesn't include is how we manage marine pests. And there is probably an increasing risk of us having marine pests in this region with the recent weather events, the change in the climate, and potentially some of these marine pests already showing up sometimes. So with that context and the fact that the RPMP is up for review in 2029, we thought of coming to this committee to get your direction in our ability to review these documents, to consider the marine pests, and also all of the RPMP as well. So the first option is that we continue as normal and actually review this document in 2029 when we are due to, right? And we've sort of outlined the pros and cons of that in attachment 1. There is an opportunity to bring both of these forward. There's some capacity at the moment with the policy and planning team while we wait for the new legislation to come through. So utilizing that, there's some ability for us to start this process earlier. And we've obviously covered the options around that as well. And the third option is if the concern of the marine threats are quite significant, council also has an option for progressing a marine pathway alone, and then we'll do the RPMP review later. So that is what the three options cover for you today, and I'll just hand over to the team if they had anything else they wanted to add.
Thank you, team, and welcome. Please introduce yourselves as you each speak. And just recognising that for committee members, this paper and the sort of abstract nature of plans and biosecurity acts and so on is a bit more difficult to grapple than some of the environment group activities and fish. So any chance you can use simple language, use examples, illustrate what things mean and practical examples would be valuable. So thank you. Over to you.
Kia ora, councillors, chair. Natasha Tomic. I'm a team leader in policy overseeing this project. This is our cross-functional team. I'll let them introduce themselves briefly, and we'll take paper as read, answer any questions you may have, and I acknowledge it's a complex space, and developing or reviewing plans is always complex and very prescribed, so we are very happy to come and talk about that anytime you call us back or you have any questions.
Kia ora, Louis Schwer. I'm in the policy advisor in the environment policy team.
Hamish Carson.
Kia ora, ko Megan Melodonis toku ingoa. I'm a senior coastal scientist and focused on ecology and marine pests.
Thank you. Now, I'm sure we have a lot of questions, so please raise your hand and Ollie will mark down a speaking order. But my first question as chair is to Democratic Services. At the moment, the recommendation as framed is that this committee recommends to council that one of these options. And my understanding is that the advice is that we have a delegation to actually kick off this work. We don't need to recommend to council, and that we can just recommend one of the options, not have a second paper go to council. Can I confirm that I'm understanding that correctly and that we can believe so?
You're correct. I think we updated the paper to reflect that, so you can make a decision today on a direction, which option you would like to
Thank you very much.
for us to go with.
Great, good to clarify that. Questions from councillors? I don't have any yet, but there we go. Councillor Connolly to kick off.
I struggle with this paper a little bit, and I still thank you for summarising, Fatima, but I still don't entirely understand the difference between option 2 and option 3, and I suggested a conversation I had at the beginning maybe meant that I had misunderstood this. So option 2 is option 3 is just do the marine pathway now and start on the review of the regional pest management plan. Option 2 is do the pest management plan in total and include the marine pathway. Is that correct? And I guess so. Are they kind of equal for as ways to address the shortcomings of not having marine pests included currently, but actually option 2 allows for other pests such as that flaxseed grass thing we were talking about being included, and also I'm concerned about other freshwater pests such as golden clams that aren't covered either. So by doing option 2, that's the bigger bang, but in terms of marine pests, they might both give kind of a similar outcome. Have I understood that correctly?
So you ask about the difference between option 2 and option 3? So option 2, we would do everything immediately. Do the marine pathway management plan, do the review of the current regional pest management plan. We would start, tomorrow or in 3 months' time. Option 3, it's to do the marine pathway management plan now, because we deal with a kind of high priority, high urgency aspect of it, and then do the full review of the current regional pest management plan at a later date to meet our statutory requirements.
So I guess the second part of my question was implications of those different approaches. Were the implications for marine pests kind of similar for both approaches, but option 2 allowed us to tackle other non-marine pests that weren't currently covered by the pest management plan, and so if we wanted to look in totality, option 2 was the better option?
So option 2, we would deal with all of it sooner. Option 3, we will deal with marine sooner, everything else a little bit later.
Sorry, can you assist Fatima? I'm still not getting the difference between option 2
So
and option 3 in terms
if I
of
could
the
just try and-
consequence
if I could just
for...
try and
Hamish, do you have a response?
I do, yeah. So basically, our biggest gap at the moment is marine pests, and so we've made our option 3, and that we would focus on dealing with those, whereas option 2 is the whole cohort of everything. So if we're just focusing on marine pests, we would go with option 3. If we want more, we would go with option 2. There are differences in terms of resource for all of those options, and in the table that has come with your paper today, it sort of goes through them, and they're color coded as well, from a whole lot of different points of view. So that might be helpful.
Sorry, we're still not getting to
If
the...
you were a Kalupa
So,
and you
Councillor-
wanted to thrive, which option would be most dangerous for you?
So the fundamental question is, does the marine rules and stuff get done quicker under option 2 or 3, or is it the same for the marine?
Kia ora, may I just add, your summary was accurate, Councillor Connolly, and the approach for marine pests is the same under both options, but the one option just includes additional work.
Thank you very much.
Just with the one caveat that option 3 would have, we expect rules would be in place sooner than option 2.
Yes, so we've got Councillor Tupou next, and then Councillor Johnstone.
I think through the chair, what might be helpful is just, for me, is to tighten the view of these options with what is the preferred. Now, usually sometimes the officers will say this option is preferred because, but in this particular paper, Mr. Chair, there it goes through all 3 options if they are each preferred, which adds to the slight confusion. I guess my question for the officers is, what is practical, doable and actionable? Because, we've got a huge work program ahead. I'd be interested in hearing your perspective on that.
Okay, would officers like to respond?
So in regards to the latter question, part of your question about resourcing, I think we talked a little bit about in this. Doing it sooner is resource-wise better for the officers. However, we do talk and take analysis of mana whenua resourcing and their availability through those times. We all know that everybody over the next 3 years is going to be very, very busy with everything that's coming at us. But right now, from the officer's perspective, our resources is for sooner rather than later.
Which for officers would make 2 or 3 more higher preference than 1. Do officers have a preference between 2 and 3, and why?
For us, I think we have an equal preference. I know that that sounds a bit... we have an equal preference because we're going to be dealing with the most urgent aspect of it sooner, which is marine pests. Doing the combined marine pests and the regional pest management plan just allow us to do all of it together at the same time. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Johnstone next. I have a question that follows. In terms of potentially expediting this process, given the nature of the marine pest risk, the paper outlines how Marlborough District Council is quite a long way ahead of us here, and that Tasman and Nelson are borrowing from Marlborough. What's to stop us picking up the guts of what Marlborough has done and plonking it into our pathway, turning it into a pathway for Wellington and just making it sort of work for our particular waterways? I mean, are we doing a bespoke, writing it from scratch, or can we actually drop and tweak?
Good policy investigations always involve to look into what other councils have done and, borrow. we absolutely have intention to do that. And I think we talk about aligning ourselves with our neighboring regions. However, to be true to the policy process, we do need to look into the options and what does apply to our region and how do we, want to see that protection in our region. So during the process, once we know which direction we are taking, we will be coming back to you to provide options that we have, content of policy options. Again, there's going to be opportunity for you to also explore, is it a little bit more bespoke or is it a cut and paste or something in between?
Thank you. Councillor Johnston.
Sorry, I just want to check on resources. I think we deferred some capability for the annual plan. And if we voted for option 2 or option 3, would it, do we need to actually review that? Have you actually got the capability at the moment, or should we be reviewing that again as well to help you?
So for the development or for the review of the regional pest management plan and development of marine pathway management plan, we have that resourcing. You're kind of looking at it, plus some of our technical experts. The position that's been deferred is complementary to what we're doing. So it would help. It would help, especially for the implementation aspect of once we do the review and once we develop the marine pathway management plan.
Can I ask a supplementary question? So would that person have specifically marine expertise?
I would assume so. I'll ask Megan.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Any Councillor Makareni?
Kia ora, thank you for this and outlining the options and stuff. Now I may be reading this wrong, and please correct me if I am, but it appears that there appears to be less involvement by mana whenua in option 2. Is that correct? Would be my question. And if it is, can that actually be addressed, like perhaps by asking mana whenua what their capacity is or when they could be involved, given that they are already doing mahi in this area to an extent, or including them in where and how they have the capacity until they can build that up?
We definitely, maybe it doesn't come through that option, but we definitely intend to have, as far as we can, as far as mana whenua is able to in the current environment, to be part of this and to partner up with. We've been having conversation with Te Hunga Wherewhere. How do we enable and support that, depending on which direction we take from your decision today. So the intent is to partner up with mana whenua on this mahi as much as that's possible. All of the doesn't matter which option, that's the starting point.
Thank you. Councillor Rhodes, did you have a question? No? Councillor Free, and then I understand Councillor Johnstone has a motion to move, so we could move to that unless there are other questions. Councillor Free.
So I'm looking more at the general pest management review. How much work do we currently do within each TA to help manage pests? Is it just limited to reserves or limited to land that Greater Wellington owns? Or do we help with the general weed management across a territorial authority area? And I'm thinking of weeds, terrestrial weeds, not necessarily the ones in waterways.
So we have a site-led program, the Key Native Ecosystem Program, where we partner with TAs on some land that they own that are high-value sites, and so we will put in funding. They will put in funding for some of those site-led programs. We were managing weeds and animal pests also. For animal pests, TAs in areas that are outside of Cairnies, they will pay us for us to deal with pest animals in some of those sites. Hutt City Council is a little different at the moment in that for this current version of the Regional Pest Management Plan, they wanted us to include some species that they were more going to deal with. And so within the Hutt City area, there's things like some vines that they wanted to have in the plan so that they could deal with them further. Does that answer your question?
It does, and it's really helpful. When you say they could deal with them, would that be totally at their expense, or would there be some contribution?
We don't have a program to deal with those species within Hutt City, but they do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Last question from Councillor Rhodes, and then we have a motion to put.
Just a quickie, reading through your paper, seems that the real issue is like the speed with which you'll get a marine pest management plan up and running. So going with option 2, I think, no, option 3 means your marine pest thing will get done quicker, whereas with the other whole basket of whole things, it'll take a lot longer to do both. So is that right? Is that sort of, yeah.
We also have a small scale management plan, which is another feature of the Biosecurity Act, which if a species does get into our region, like fanworm, then we could set up a small scale management plan to be able to deal with that. It would have to be within a 3 years that we thought we could deal with it. So we do have some other options where we can that we can utilise. The Act, that's something that is in the paper that we haven't talked about yet, that is being updated. And so that is another reason why we've got option 3, because the fact that that Act is being updated might mean that we need to update our RPNP later.
Dave Hipkins would like to comment.
Kia ora. I agree with what you're saying, and I'm not sure if this would help Ros. If we take this up a slight step, the benefit of option 2 is we focus on marine and we potentially avoid some of the longer conversations or more complex conversations that might be incurred, like what we do with deer, what we do with pigs, what we do with possums. Especially deer, we look at some of our neighbouring regional councils and they have a long-ranging conversation with hunters around deer. So we potentially pause that conversation to allow us to get the marine in. So while the marine will take the same length of time for marine specifically either option, some of the things in option 3 may take us longer to work through, and therefore it will take longer to get marine in there, not from the marine angle, but from the conversations it's going to take on the other side. Does that help answer your initial question at all?
Sorry.
Except you're referring to option 3.
Yeah,
not 2,
I think you mixed up option 2 and 3. So
it's the confusion.
Apologies if I got the options around the wrong way.
So we're going to have to pull this to a decision-making point. One question though, because there's a tension here between moving quicker on marine, which would be option 3, versus broader work, option 2. Is there any reason why we can't move quicker, do option 2 and move quicker on marine? I mean, they're two pieces of work that overlap but are somewhat distinct. Why does the fuller analysis and the effectiveness review of our current plan, why does that need to slow down our work on the marine pathway?
I think it's a really good question, and just to give you some advice, our initial discussions around the region is that the capacity on the region to engage with another substantive plan is probably not very high at the moment. And that's across our stakeholders, across our iwi partners, particularly with all the reforms sitting on the table. Regional pest management is something people are genuinely interested in, and they want to have a say and they want to be involved. So to manage these plans alongside all the other reforms that are on the table at the moment, I think the capacity in the region is probably something we need to think about, particularly when we go on to that consultation engagement space. So that's why option 2 is like we haven't put a preferred option forward, because we know that the capacity in the region to engage with further plans is probably not so great at the moment.
Sorry, so what do you mean? Which one are you saying?
So option 2, where we go now for both, right now, particularly in the next year or two, there is a lot of reform and a lot of engagement in the water space, around the resource management space that people are engaging in. It's the same people that will have to also engage in regional pest management and have a say around it. Yes, we've got different stakeholder groups that are very specific for this, but in general, in terms of planning and regulatory and rules sorts of direction, it is the same people across these organizations. So that that is a consideration, and we've highlighted that in attachment 1 as well.
Okay, thank you. So Councillor Johnstone and I had talked before the meeting about preferring option 2 and putting that forward. However, as is the nature of council debates and question time, maybe we've got different views around. So but Councillor Johnson would like to move a motion to get the debate started, because we have to choose one here. You may have changed your proposition. No? So can we move into debate, please? And I'll thank you, officers. So this is the motion as moved by Councillor Johnstone.
Are you guys going to put it up, or is it up?
It is up, yep,
And
and
that's good.
seconded by Councillor Elder, is that correct? And then you can both speak to it in the first instance, and then others can speak, and we can change it if we need to.
Okay. Can I just ask if we're going to take out recommend to council?
We have done that up there, yep. So Councillor Johnstone, over to you in debate.
Okay. So firstly, thank you very much for the paper, and I think we should note the paper, but I'm going to move option 2. And the reason I think that is I think we should do things once and do it well. And there's a lot of crossover, and I know we also have stakeholders that get really tired of being asked things twice. So I do think it would be more efficient. I really want to see something done in terms of maritime pests. We are at risk. We've got a $1.1 billion industry, maritime industry in New Zealand, or marine industry in New Zealand, that we will put at risk. That's direct benefit to the country's economy, and indirect is another 1.1 billion. On top of that, I don't want to see some of our, basically our native marine life destroyed, including being destroyed by some of our own native marine life, I might actually add, along the way. So from what I can understand, with climate change and things coming south our way, we've got 428 species now that do not belong here and should not be here. We also have quite a mobile population that's going back and forth between harbours and between here and the Pacific. I've got so many friends that have brought yachts recently, and I think they're too old to clean their yachts properly, which is a real worry. On that basis, I would like to move option 2, but I would also like to suggest that we reconsider getting a marine specialist, because this is quite a specialist area, and that we try and bring that forward. So do I have to read it formally? Because I can't see it from here. My glasses
No, I think
are
we'll read it before we vote on it, but everyone can
Yeah.
see it well enough at the moment. Councillor Elder, would you like to speak as seconder of the motion?
Yeah. I just want to make note of the fact that we're going through a period of organisational uncertainty, but regardless of whatever the outcome is, this requirement will still exist beyond that. And acknowledging Fatima's comments about operating in a resource-constrained environment, we still have to find a path forward.
Thank you. Other councillors like to speak in debate? Councillor Connolly, Councillor Tupou.
So I am going to support the motion. I didn't know what I was going to do when I came into the meeting today, because I didn't entirely understand the options in front of us. But so thank you to officers for the clarification we've had today. I guess I do see marine pests as a massive weakness in our current pest management framework. And so that is the glaring error that needs to be remedied. So that might lead you to conclude that option 3 was the better option. However, there are also some other glaring shortcomings of our current pest management strategy, and who am I to say what the next pest incursion is going to be? It may be this grass, flaxseed, weed, bamboo thing that we heard about earlier in the meeting. So I've been itching to get my my paws onto the pest management plan for a while now. So I think the time has come, and as others have said, do it once, do it properly, and look at the whole thing in total, because obviously there are consequences for implementation that go across all pests. And so I think this is the best way. And so I would just like to, I will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Tupou.
Thank you, Chair. Just in support of the motion that's been put forward, that I think it was important to hear from officers and managers that we're here to do the business, and we have the capacity. So that's enough for me to support the motion and to emphasise, as colleagues have, the importance of pest management along our moana, and certainly that being one of the enduring and lasting, perhaps, outcomes of this. Of course, this, in terms of the reform context, this will, excuse me, will change. But given the time that we have left, I think we get on with the mahi. Kia ora.
Thank you. I don't see anyone wanting to speak again. Councillor Free?
Very briefly, I was going to say more or less what Councillor Tupua has said. I think we haven't got much, necessarily much ability to leave major work in this triennium, but I think this is a really important piece of work, and I think we should all support it actually getting on with it. Not just for the marine pests, though. I actually do agree that we need to do a comprehensive review of everything, including, some of the creeping vines that seem to be taking over some of our land. So, yeah, I'm happy to go with this option too.
Thank you, councillors. Speaking in debate for myself, two concerns have been raised with option 2. One is that it might slow down the implementation of a marine biosecurity pathway, and the other one is around mana whenua capability to engage. So as chair, I will commit to following those two concerns to see if we can expedite, grease the wheels, find a way to make that effective, working with my colleagues, because I also will be supporting option 2, the motion. So unless there's anyone else burning to say anything, then I'd like to put the vote on, is it clear above? So first is a noting recommendation that we requested this report. The decision is to start the full review of the RPMP, including marine pathway, I'm paraphrasing. And then 3, that when we do our annual plan final decisions, we relook at that role of marine biosecurity and just check that we're making the right decision there. So we're not bind, this motion does not bind council to that, but we look closely at it. So having paraphrased rather than read them out, I think it's clear around the table. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. That is our decision paper for today. And I apologise to everyone that it's ticked over 12:30 and we're just getting to Farming Reference Group and then lunch. However, very important is our 4th paper today is an introduction to the Farming Reference Group, which advises this committee on matters relating to Greater Wellington activities and policy in farming and rural areas. We have members of the group here present, so if you'd like to come forward as well, because we'd love it if you introduced yourselves, and then you can talk to us more over lunch. So I'm trying to ad-lib and filibuster here as we do some furniture rearranging. Okay, I think we'll just be careful about technology cables and so on. Please come forward. Fatima will begin the introductions here. And it's wonderful to have you join us today, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing the items so far. Okay, I've run out of things to say, so I'll just pause while they get organised. If I could sing, I'd burst into song, but I can't. Thank you, Fatima.
Kia ora, Environment Committee. Sorry, I did try to move a table that can't be moved. It is my pleasure to welcome the Farming Reference Group. Not all of our Farming Reference Group is here today, but a huge appreciation for the committee members the reference group members who can be here today. I just wanted to sort of give a bit of an introduction to the group. The Farming Reference Group provides advisory advice and support to the Environment and Climate Committee. Generally, it is around farming and rural matters. But from an officer's perspective, for us, this group is hugely valuable, particularly maybe not so much to the Farming Reference Group's pleasure, but testing our regulation and our policy positions and really valuing the views that they talk to us about on how these land in the rural sector. We also get to test our on-ground work and how we're working with the communities there. And the Farming Reference Group, genuinely over the last triennium, which I've worked with them around, have given us such really good, solid advice. So we're really excited in this new chapter with the Environment and Climate Committee about making sure that that relationship's a lot closer, that the advice comes to this committee and you have the option to ask for that advice as well from this reference group. So I'm the lead director for this, and I'm supported by Will and Christina. We're really putting a lot of officers behind this to really make sure that the advice and the content that we discuss are valuable to the Environment and Climate Committee, but also the Farming Reference Group has a way through as well. So just before I lead the introduction of the members, I just wanted to give Will and Christina a quick round of introductions as well.
Kia ora tātou. So I'm Christina Cranston. I'm born and bred in the Wairarapa. I grew up on a hill country farm there, and the older I get, the more appreciative I am for that experience. My substantive role at Greater Wellington is team leader of our consents and compliance team based over in the Wairarapa, but at the moment I'm on secondment as team leader of our knowledge water ecosystems team, which is a nice change. And I feel very privileged to work in roles where I get to look out for both our rural communities and the environment, and I look forward to doing that further through FRG.
Kia ora, Environment Climate Committee. I'm similar to Christina. Grew up and live in a rural part of our region. Very proud of that. Can't tell you how important it is that our relationship with the rural community is strong, as our work has such a significant impact on their way of life. I think we already do a good job with rural community in a lot of areas, but there is always room for improvement, and we'll make sure we are doing that through our work with the FRG.
Thank you both. I just wanted to invite the chair or Councillor Gaylor if there was anything you wanted to say on the FRG, or would you like to leave that after
Let's
introductions?
introduce the members,
Okay.
and then Councillor
Cool.
Gaylor can have first question comment.
Hello all, I'm Richard Johns. I'm a sheep and beef farmer from Wainuiru. I'm the chair of the Wairarapa Catchment Collective. The pest control discussion before was interesting to me. We've just received a $250,000 fund from MPI for a field air project, and we're working pretty closely with the team at Greater Wellington. Locally in our catchment group, the heaps of possums, it's becoming a big problem. We've got our own AT220s. One guy's got about 2,000 possums. We're working with Greater Wellington to try and drum up some plans. So good relationship. Yeah, welcome.
Hi, Stan Broaksma, previously employed by Greater Wellington throughout. Been in land management all my life, basically, and a specialist also in poplar willow and forestry. Been conscripted onto the FRG to help with land management and maybe more forestry activities.
Hi, Meg Wheatstone. I'm a sheep, beef and cropping farmer from the east coast of Wairarapa. Was involved with the Farmer Reference Group previously, and happy to be continuing on in that role. I think there is a really good relationship between the rural sector and the regional council in the Wairarapa that we really need to make sure we maintain and foster. And just the other comment that we entered the Balanced Farm Environment Awards last year, and one of the awards we won was the Greater Regional Wellington Council Award. So thank you for your role in that.
Hi, I'm Stuart McKenzie. I'm sheep and beef farming with a reasonably significant area of pine tree as well. I too am on the Wairarapa Catchment Collective with Rich, and as he says, it's quite challenging at the moment with the pests that we're dealing with. Having served on the reference group before, this is perhaps a little bit more daunting than what we've had to have before, but with a combination of both. But really looking forward to it. It looks like it's going to be a lot more challenging than what we've perhaps had prior. And thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kerry Walker. I'm up on the Kapiti coast, just down the road from your lovely Penny over there. Yes, I feel very privileged to be again asked to serve you guys and, well, serve our rural constituents, because I think the fact that we're here as a stress group or a reference group is a massive, massive asset for you guys. And when we do our things, I just want you to be your inner Adrian, because she was an amazing person for us. And we really need that sort of support in the group to come forward, because us rural guys sometimes feel that we're just marginalised a little. So it's very nice to have you guys on our side. Thank you.
Hi, I am Gavin Bruce, sheep and beef farmer from Oharia Valley, which is a smaller rural area compared to the Wairarapa. I got crop drawn last year, I think, and I'm only really just appreciating the amount of effort you guys have all put in over the last few years, and I'm sort of grateful to have the opportunity to ride on your shoulders for our community, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Bali.
Hi, I'm Barbie Barton. I'm going to miss hugely my trips over the hill to the Environment Committee meetings with Adrian in the car. We planned all sorts of things to do and get on with, and I'll have to carry on doing them for her. On that note, we're a sheep and beef semi-retiring farm on the outskirts of Greytown. Quentin came and saw us on Monday, and we took him up top for a cup of tea where he could virtually see the entire constituency of the Wairarapa, except not quite the sea out to the east, but pretty much we could see the sea down to the south. So it's a big area. It's got a lot of complexities to it, which I don't expect all of you to understand. And I think we were very lucky that we had Adrian with sort of 25 years in local politics who represented our region really well. And her knowledge of the region was huge. So yeah, there's some big shoes to fill, guys, around the table in that space. My involvement has been about as long as I think, Stu, I think you and I came on, and we're probably the older representatives of being on this farmer reference group. But the premise of why it was set up is never going to change, and it's around giving a voice to the farming community back into that policy space. And I think it's been invaluable over the years of what I've witnessed and what I've seen. All of us do wear other hats outside. My one is I chair the Balanced Farm Environment Awards. So once again, thank you, Greater Wellington Regional Council, for making those awards happen. And they're an opportunity to showcase really good practice in terms of land management in that rural space. So yeah, that's me. I will take the lead just to introduce the two people who are missing. Hannah French has come on as a new member onto it. She's taken Emily Crowfoot's place. Emily was part of the Castle Point Station, which is a reasonably large property, literally at Castle Point. Emily had done longer service than me, so we will take the opportunity to thank her at our first meeting. But Hannah has come in. She's younger, but more energy, and she's got a background in sort of land management, but she's in a farm advisory role, and she and her husband have been farming on her father-in-law's property, and they're currently in the hunt for a property of their own. And the other long-standing member is Aidan Bicken, who is also missing today. Aidan, with Kaiwaiwai Dairies, which you may or may not have heard of, is a very enterprising dairy farm where there's 3 owners who have a lot of fun experimenting in the space of how to be more efficient, whether it be water, they put in solar, they do a lot of work with restoration work as well. So interesting person. So yeah, Aidan's missing today, unfortunately, but he's a great voice and a great champion in the space for us. So that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbie. Councillor Gaylor has been chair of the Environment Committee and therefore on the Farmers Reference Group for many years. So I've invited her to speak first, and then we'll see what other questions or comments are around the table.
Thank you to the chair. So welcome to the group. I actually had been on for the first 9 years of being on this council, and I actually wasn't on there as the environment chair. So the first term when I got on, I realised that the Kapiti Coast representative hadn't been on the farming reference group, so that's why that actually came about. And then it so happened that I was chair for the environment committee for the last 2 terms. So I too have a farming background, but it's a really long time ago. And one of the reference points for me individually and as an elected representative representing a fairly provincial community, is that farming has changed so much since the day when my dad was farming, and the science that he put into it was observational and lifting the irrigation pipe up and having a drink. The science of farming these days is, I always dreamed of being a farmer myself, or a stock agent, but it's a very different, very complex environment. And while the advisory group is there and we're testing things that our staff are bringing forward, or testing directions, testing ideas, we're sharing things with the advisory group. For Adrian and I, it felt like we could almost be that, it was testing for us, our assumptions. Less so for Adrian, but probably more so for me. The assumptions that one has, that a lot of people across our country do have, and you'll know about this, is the assumption about what the existence is for rural people, for people who are trying to run a business that so happens to be on the land and trying to be productive, while all the regulations and the kind of the construct and the problems that we have, that you will experience firsthand from councils. So you would think that that would then create tension, and I can just, it's been such a lovely experience over those 9 years, because there wasn't tension. There was professionalism, there was respect of relationships. It was brilliant for our organisation to have this connection into this group of multi-talented, multi-skilled, multi-knowledge group of experts, and that collaboration that came from it, this sense of partnership. I felt that, sometimes we can sit around a council table and you don't genuinely feel that you are working in partnership with your community in the way that we envisage when we seek to be elected representatives. So I applaud that the Regional Council has done this approach for many years now, and certainly applaud that the members who've always been around the table brought that attitude to it. So I just wanted to say that, there was a very good summary in this paper of the kind of the key points and approaches of our farming reference group, but then to add the human dynamic that can be the undoing. But for the farming and reference advisory group, it's very much the doing of making this partnership work. So Adrian and I would always enjoy the environment of meeting with the group, and I know that staff did too, and we've certainly appreciated that. And so, there were the critical 3 parts to this partnership, and for us as elected representatives, while we absolutely value our staff, it was really good for us to have this opportunity to kind of test the advice that we're getting and seeing how will this go down with our community. Really mattered to us, and it was really incredibly useful, and so it was a real pleasure to be part of the farming reference group. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. I'm also looking forward this triennium to working with the farming reference group, and I think one of my aims is a much closer to and fro between the farming reference group and this committee. So it's not just that you're advising officers, but that you're advising us as well, and that we can feed things through to you. So members will know that the farming reference group chair is a member of this committee, and so we will have a space on each agenda to discuss matters of advice, and I will, as chair, I will try and make sure that we have a good time, that it's not left on the bottom of the agenda for the last thing before morning tea like this one. However, we've got just a moment before we should go and break for lunch. If there are any comments or questions from members, let's keep it nice and short, because everyone's keen on a bit of kai. But Councillor Tupou, Councillor Johnstone, and Councillor Saw and Councillor Elder, and then let's call that lunch. Tupou.
Kia ora tātou. Just introducing myself as Quinton's deputy, and I'm a first-time regional councillor from Hutt City Council. And when I was officers, had asked for consideration on the selection of the members for FRG, and I just said, look, I trust Adrian 100%. And she knew everyone. She had a great knowledge, as was mentioned, not just of Wairarapa, but of the wider region. even into the corners of where I am in Wainuiomata and Lower Hutt and here in Wellington. So I think it's a great testament, and this is part of her legacy, this group. So I have complete faith in our working relationship moving forward, and particularly as with a whānau background in farming and orcharding, and I'm looking forward to learning and listening. Kia ora.
Thank you, Gabriel. Claire.
I just want to say welcome. I'm really pleased to see you guys here. I come from a multi-generational farming background. We farmed for 14 years in Hawke's Bay. I was a rural reporter, and I remember the days when the Hawke's Bay Regional Council was actually feared by the farmers because we were usually there to tell them to retire land or to plant more. I feel it's sort of missing in the Wellington region, regional council to a certain extent, this understanding of the importance of the agricultural economy. So pleased to see you here, and I was particularly pleased to hear Quentin say that you would be advising us, because there's a few of us that really want to talk to you about farming and leasing and use of land, and your thoughts about land actually on this side of the island, because I know most of you are sort of more on the Wairarapa, and not all of you, but we're from the Pawatahanui side and the Lower Hutt side. Quite different land from Wairarapa, and it'd be really good to converse. So welcome, absolutely stoked that you're here. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Yardena. Councillor Saw.
Kia ora, I'm Yardena. I'm one of the very soft-handed Metro Wellington constituency councillors. I'm a second termer, but you'll be surprised to know that I have done my time in the milking sheds up in Taitokerau. So I just wanted to extend, I guess, our interest and support in the work that you do, particularly with the loss of Adrian. And so it is an opportunity for all of us to honour her legacy and to continue. You know, we're going to have to find our allies in different ways, even though Adrian isn't here. And I think this is the opportunity for us to do that, as well as just to recognise that being from the soft-handed Metro universe, a lot of my community are entirely divorced from their activities and their impacts on the land, whereas rural communities and in the industries that you're in, people know very, very well what the impacts are. So I see us having an opportunity there to learn from each other and share each other's work and perspectives.
Thank you, Yardena. Councillor Elder.
Hi, Elder. I just want to welcome you all and thank you for putting yourself forward for this group. I'm a Wairarapa farm boy at heart, so I can relate to a lot of where you are and what you're doing. I probably have a better awareness than most people of the size and scale and diversity of the Wairarapa as a region. But now I'm on this side of the hill and I'm representing Lower Hutt, and we've got a couple of challenges of our own, and I really look forward to the way you can help us with that, particularly around maintaining farming on Belmont Park and the challenges we have with Goldlands Valley coming up. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone. My stomach just rumbled, which might be a sure sign that we need to indulge in some kai, which may or may not have come from Wairarapa or Kapiti Coast or Haru Valley. So we'll call this meeting to a close. And of course, the members of the Farming Reference Group will join us for lunch and we can carry on the conversation. My understanding is we will go into workshop at 1:30 and we'll start with the Pinehaven item, which is a closed workshop for this committee. So, me karakia whakamutunga, kia tau te rangimarie e, ki runga, ki raro, ki roto, ki waho, aio ki te aorangi, ka whakamaua ki a tīna. Hui e, tai ki e.